while exploring universe storytelling, cross-border appeal, and the craft of building narratives resonating worldwide. This panel gathers animation leaders from renowned studios to dissect how creators build stories with worldwide impact. Our first panelist, Briana Yarhouse, he's here. Yeah, ma'am, please come on the stage, yes. Briana, she's animator and director of Interlochen Arts Academy, founded its animation program and leads ASIFA's International Animation Day, a published scholar and global speaker. Her acclaimed films like Beyond Freedom and The Box have screened internationally. उनके लिए हम तालियां बजा लें. Thank you. I call upon Pramita Mukherjee. Pramita Mukherjee is a character effects artist and DreamWorks Animation with 18 plus years in the industry. Starting as a rigger in India at 19, she has since worked globally on hits like Kung Fu Panda 4, Puss in Boots, and The Last Wish, and Wonder Woman. We welcome you, ma'am. Rajiv Chilaka is a founder, is he here? Yes. Is founder of Green Gold Animation, created the iconic Chhota Bheem. We all have heard this, we all have seen this. As CEO, he leads 800 plus artists producing acclaimed shows and films. Green Gold reaches over 100 million kids globally across TV, film, digital, and licensing platform. We welcome you, sir. P. Jayakumar, CEO of Toons Media Group, is a global AVGC leader. Under his leadership, Toons expanded worldwide with 10 companies, 11 offices, and 1,000 plus professionals, producing 10,000 plus minutes of animation annually and acquiring studios in Spain and Ireland. We welcome you, sir. Tilak Shetty is a co-founder of Graffiti Studios, is a pioneer in Indian media with 35 plus years of experience in film and animation. A programmer and author of 8 books, he blends tech and creativity. His acclaimed works include Krish, Trish, and Balti Boy. Bharat Hai Hum. We all have heard this. Now streaming globally. We welcome you, sir. I call upon Sharad Devranjan, founder and CEO, Graphic India and Liquid Comics, a serial entrepreneur, creator, and professor. Sharad Devranjan has produced over 200 animated TV episodes and 300 plus comics. He co-created Spider-Man India, The Legend of Hanuman, and Bahubali, Crown of Blood, among others. Devranjan champions India's creativity globally and teaches media innovation at Columbia Business School. We all welcome you, sir. And the moderator is Dhwani Desai, acclaimed animation filmmaker and curator with 34 years of experience. Her award-winning films have been earned global recognition. She has served on international juries and curated animation programs for over a decade. So now it's all yours, Dhwani ji, and please switch off your phones and enjoy the session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Today we have a very interesting topic. We usually in India talk a lot about business and the numbers. But animation and creativity and cinema is also about stories. And content is something which is most important in creating global narratives and cross-culture storytelling. It's the soul of a film, and India is a land of storytellers. Well, when this topic came up to me, the first thing that came to my mind is a shloka, Sanskrit shloka from Maha Upanishad that says, Ayam nijaha paro veti ganana laghu chetasam udara charitanam tu vasudhaiva kutumbakam. In English, it means, this is mine, that is yours, is a very narrow way of thinking for a narrow-minded people. But for those with noble character, the whole world is just one big family. Here, in today's discussion, we are going to concentrate more on which type of stories have universal appeals. Earlier, there were stories in animation which were more fun kind of stories and more for entertainment. But in the mid-century, storytelling became very focused. There came films which were adult films also, and Briana will agree with me. There was a big change. Films like Persepolis, it was an Iranian revolution, and Waltz with Bashir on Lebanon war, but they were critically acclaimed. But they didn't have a universal appeal. But in 2001, before we definitely got Lion King in 1994, but in 2001 was an important year for animation because it changed the entire scene of animation with a film called Spirited Away. This also won an Oscar, and it was directed by Miyazaki, who is the Japanese world master. He brought in Japanese folklore and Shintoism, which came first time into animation, and it was introduced to the kids. Shintoism is an indigenous religion of Japan. And this is the way a new type of storytelling was introduced to the world. Of course, then there came many good films and many acclaimed films like Moana on Polynesia culture and Coco, which was on Mexican culture, and they were universally successful. But today's panel discussion, it's like a laboratory. I've been a science student, I've been a management student, I've done my MBA finance, just like how Mr. Jaikumar is a finance person. So I think it's like a case study. What we are going to have and discuss over here is what is successful for cross-cultural storytelling and how are global narratives created, which becomes successful. Before I start the discussion, I think George Bernard Shaw's quote is very appropriate and applicable for our discussion. And that is, if I have one apple and you have another apple, and if we plan to exchange, then you will have one apple and I will have one apple. But if you have an idea and I have an idea, and if we plan to exchange ideas, then you will have two ideas and I will have two ideas. This is exactly what we are planning in this panel discussion. We are going to exchange ideas with experts of the industry from India, from abroad. And I'm sure this is going to be a very enriching experience for all of us. My first question is to Rajiv. Rajiv, everybody knows you, not only in India, but globally because of Chota Bheem. Chota Bheem and other characters like Mighty Little Bheem and Mighty Raju have become household names globally. Now, what happens is, with my so many years of nearly 34, 35 years of experience in animation, I have seen that films and serials come and go. But very few remain in minds of people for generations and for many years. And you have done this kind of work, which is remarkable. What is your secret recipe to storytelling?
Hi all, good afternoon, and I think it's still good morning. So thank you for having me, and great question. So secret-wise, if I know the secret, I would have done, today we have produced more than 16 shows as Green Gold. If I knew the secret, I think we would have 4 or 5 super hit shows, but we only have one super hit show, Chota Bheem. So honestly, I don't know the secret formula. But what I know is that when we started out, as a kid, first thing, I realized that for India, there is no Indian superhero. My favorite characters growing up were, depending on my age, Mickey and Donald to Spider-Man to Superman. And I was fascinated with these characters, and I always wanted to meet these characters. And I asked my dad, can I meet Superman? He said he lives in US. What about Spider-Man? Oh, everyone is in the US. I said, okay, what do I do? And then there was some show, Giant Robot, that came. I said, I want to meet this. Then he said, Japan. So I was very, like I said, what about our superheroes? He said, no, we have Hanuman, Krishna, we have. I said, but they're God. That means I have to die, and I don't want to die. So that was something that remained in my head, that someday we need Indian superheroes. We have a huge population of kids. When we started out, even today, even much larger. I felt, how do we make our children connect to their roots? Because suddenly they started believing that everything West is cool. I'm not saying it's not, but we are feeling they're going to grow up thinking that we are inferior to someone else. And I think that is something that we should not have it for any generation of kids, because we are all born equals and we need to explore our stuff. So I felt like, first, I was very desperate to survive as a studio. Then I was very desperate to create an Indian superhero. And that's how started my journey. I had some 15, 20 ideas which I developed Bible for, and my team was excited about 2 or 3 ideas. And Chhota Bheem was one of them. And so I took that idea and I went trying to sell that show. It took me almost 5 years to sell. I think what people don't know that what happened behind. So it took me forever to sell the show, convince that this can be done. So we had to prove ourselves doing content which was Vikram Betal or Krishna. We produced that. And then we had an opportunity to produce Bheem. So when Bheem came, of course, it was an instant hit. And I really didn't know why it was working. But what I knew that every kid across the length and breadth of the country, no matter what is your ethnicity or which language you speak or which religion you belong to, everybody loved it. And what I realized, that simple storytelling, that simple characters, and everybody could relate to one of the characters in the show, that made a lot of difference. And that was kind of our starting point. But the bigger challenge is, how do you last more than 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or 7 years? Now today, I would like to tell the audience, thank you for your love and affection towards Chhota Bheem. We have hit 17 years last month. And it is the first Indian show that has come, of course, that far. And more importantly, for the people who understand money better than creativity, it has done a business of 800 crores directly into our studio. So over 17 years, and probably by the end of this year, we will be hitting $100 million or 900 crores. So this is a significant thing.
Wow. Yeah, that's really amazing, and I'm sure everybody is very proud of the kind of work you have done. And I would now like to ask Briana. Briana, you have a vast experience. You stay in the US. You are a director of the Animation Academy there, and also a mentor, and you teach. I would like to ask you a question as to how do you guide your students to create global narratives, and if there are cross-cultural storytelling?
Okay, this is not working, so I will just talk loud. I teach at Interlochen Center for the Arts, which is the premier, it's working now, the premier top boarding school for the arts in the world. And I started an animation program there. It's in its 3rd year. I was a professor before that. So how to get to the answer to the question, I have students that come from around the world to be part of the animation program there. I have students from Russia, from China, from Central and South America. and the United States. And what I try to foster in my children and my students is a fearlessness, an ability to look at things, try things, play, explore, rub elbows with all the different kinds of arts, because we are a boarding school with all sorts of arts that go on there. And so I'm always getting them connected with poets, with musicians, with other artists, and we smash together and we create things that way. And part of the exploration is to get them out of the digital as much and get them into the physical. So we'll be working in sand animation, we'll work in clay, we'll work in all sorts of media. We'll explore and find out what we can do. There's things that we've never tried before. And that leads to new ideas, new ways of looking at the world, taking their cultural context of what they bring in with them and finding ways to tell those stories and the stories that we can tell together. That's part of what we do.
I'd like to ask you another question.
Yeah.
There was a film called The Princess and the Frog by the Disneys. And it was the first time Disney used a black princess, which was a big step. It was like including the black in the mainstream. Now, what I would like you to share with the audience and your experience with teaching, and you teach around the world also, do such experiments work? Or can you quote some other experiments like this, which is a little different, but which has done very well?
So I think that all of us have stories that are unique that we can tell. We have perspectives that we can share, and those perspectives that we share have two parts to them. They have the uniqueness of our stories, but they also have a universalness. And when we drive down to the core of a story, it is on a human level that it happens. We all share as humans in various stories. But telling them in different ways allows for us to see things from different perspectives. As director of International Animation Day for the World, I am fascinated by the stories that are told around the world that I get a chance to exchange and share. What I end up doing for that organization is helping to collaborate and help chapters in areas of the world to share their work with other areas of the world, so that on October 28th or around that, we can have an international showing of work from creators and their vision, their storytelling. And what happens in that is that you get a chance to see what's happening in Iran. What are they thinking? What are the students thinking? The animators thinking? How are they moved in their world? How are they moved in China by the things that they're coming up with? The uniqueness of their visions in the United States, all over the world. People have these unique experiences, and part of what I do with ASIFA is, by sharing those experiences, we're allowing for a cultural exchange that provides for us to see each other as humans instead of seeing each other as others. So I think that, to kind of drive back to your question, if I'm getting your question right, all of these experiences allow for us to enter into other people's worlds, and it's really important for us to do that. Did I catch it?
Coming to Mr. Jaikumar, well, when I read your biodata, I was very fascinated, because you have ventured out of the country also, having nearly your company in 11 countries. I won't be surprised if Toon lands up on Surya or the moon also, the way you are progressing. Talking about connecting cultures and connecting different countries, I would like to, before I ask this question, I'd like to share this experience with you, because I was very fascinated with this particular thing I witnessed. Recently, I was invited in Egypt as international jury for a film festival. That's where I met a lot of Egyptians who came up to me with a lot of warmth, and they felt that, you know, I was just like them. And they spoken in broken English and Arabic, and they tried to convey that I'm just the same as them. So I was wondering that I coming from India and they are from Egypt, and how is it that they are feeling so connected? So I asked them. So they said, we are just like each other. I said, how? They said, see, we have ancient civilization, then we believe in afterlives. In India also we believe in afterlives. And we have been worshipping the sun god, and you also pray to the sun god. And of course, there were many other similarities. So that's one thing which really came up to my mind and said that, oh, we are really connected. And there is some kind of a hidden bond between not only India and Egypt, but several countries. And that means we need to re-establish this. So I'm coming back to Mr. Jaikumar, is that you have worked with so many countries on different subjects also, not only Indian, but cross-cultural subjects. So what is a universal appeal subject as per your understanding and your case study?
I think Rajiv and Sharath and the creative people are here are probably the best people to answer the question. Let me just probably tell you my perspective. First of all, good morning and thank you very much for inviting me. I think, when you really talk about cross-cultural storytelling, I don't think, the culture is the, what you sprinkle as a seasoning in the story. I think the real meat is in the story itself, right? People connect across culture, I think, through emotions, right? The basic emotions are the same across cultures, whether it is grief or joy or sorrow or shame or pride or whatever it is. These kind of emotions are the same. So if you have a really great story and an emotional connect, you find using a universal theme. Look at many of these stuff. You really look at Lion King. What is Lion King ultimately? If you really look at it, it's a love story between father and a son. That love between a father and son is a universal theme, whether it is China, India, wherever it is, right? Same, look at Coco. I mean, you asked about a cultural example. Coco is a fantastic example. It's an out and out Mexican culture. But what it talks about death, it talks about ancestry, it talks about respect. So all these things, if you really analyze, I believe it is the story and it is the emotional connect in the stories. And if you actually dovetail that with your culture, with symbols and voices and symbolisms, then it will transcend culture. Animation actually has a great way to transcend barriers. Animation, because we are not star-driven, right? We're not going there to meet an Amir Khan film. So it's not a star-driven, it is a character-driven and story-driven. Because of that, it has a very rare chance of transcending cultures. But if you connect through that with an emotional theme, which need to be a universal theme, if you really wanted to go universal, there is nothing wrong in telling a story to Indian audience, if you really wanted to tell that story. But if you really wanted to tell a story to a global audience, then you need to really find a universal theme. And I think today the world is open for hearing different stories. I don't think you need to water down your culture. You can be authentic. The more truthful you are, the more honest you are, the more rooted you are to your culture, and you tell the stories, people will, the world will resonate to it. I think that is my feel about it.
Another question I would like to add is, you have been doing a lot of co-production with different countries. You have studios in Spain, Ireland, Turkey, New Zealand, and many, many other countries. What exactly is, how do you go about it? Because we really in India want to know how to connect with different countries, producers, and in a nice, successful manner.
Right. I think, one thing we first look at is, the story, whether at least it will travel to, not just one country, at least several countries, so that, because, ultimately it is a business, right? So we are spending $5 to $6 million for a TV series. So is there a chance for you to get your money back? And for that, especially in today's world, because it's so fickle, and the TV revenues are coming down and all, so it's a very tough game right now. So if it doesn't travel to at least, several key countries, we will not be able to make our money back. So that is the first question, whether the story and itself will travel, and sometimes it is a gut you take. Sometimes we go for an external validation. We sell it to we say it as pre-sales in our lingo. We pre-sell our content to, certain television channels, and then get that external validation. Yes, it will, kind of go. Ultimately, it is a sharing of risk and rewards. So because if you really do it two, three different countries, then that $6 million risk is shared between 2-3 producers. Rewards also will be. And in most of these kind of things, there is also an opportunity for you to put in a little bit of your, kind of culture and all that. But you will still not get, because, a co-production, you are, 2-3 partners, most of them are equal partners, and then you need to really respect everyone, right? So it's kind of many times there will be some Western country creatives, people will take leadership in that because that is where the money is. But I think it is more led by business rather than creativity, I would suggest, especially from India and all, because most of the Indian companies would be a junior partner, except for probably a couple of larger companies, because we have the capability to put in more money into it. But otherwise, in a Western co-production, I think they will take more leadership role in the storytelling.
Coming to Tilak. Hi, Tilak. You're looking really nice and cute today. Well, I was going through your bio, and there you mentioned about developing intellectual properties with international broadcasters. And I would like to ask you is how do you deal with the IP rights, intellectual property rights? Because every country will have their own policy. They will have their own policy, and you have to be very, tricky about the legal angle and everything. So how do you go about it, and how do you handle it?
Hello, good afternoon, and thanks for having me here. For me, very simple formula. I got this man sitting there, he handles that. So I don't look into what the IP does. I really don't spend time thinking whether, this IP will remain with me or not or whatever. So it's up to him, and we have been together for 30 years. So I just leave it to him. What I'm good at, or what I believe I should be spending time on, is to create IPs. And we firmly believe as a company is that any country needs to be known from its culture and its history. If you don't know your culture and your history, I don't think that country has any future. So we need to get our kids, or even young adult today, I would say, because this has gone to a stage where even the young adults don't really are exposed to our own culture. And, so what we do is that we try to say stories even to an audience who are like from 14 to 25. We made sure the efforts which we make, we don't look down at the kids. Okay, I don't believe, that an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old, I think they are far more exposed than what we were exposed at that point of time. They are far more smarter. So you can't look down at them and while saying stories. So, and as we move forward, like I have been seeing animation from 1990 onwards, thanks to my mentor, Mr. Ramon. I have been exposed to various kind of animation, and he always told us that don't stick to one style of animation ever. Moving forward, we always thought that, it's not only just the kids which needs to get exposed. I think the young adults which need to also get exposed to animation. And like yesterday's panel on Japanese animation, we saw how manga and anime is the way of life. And we have so many stories to say for last 2,000 years of history or tradition, you call it. There's so much to say. And if you make it interesting, you make, add humor to it and stuff like that, people will lap it up. Yeah. I have seen generation of people who 2 generation or 3 generation in each household, talking about what, characters we have created, So, yeah, there is a challenge, like what Rajiv said. There is a challenge, okay? But
Yeah, I'll come to you again
Yeah.
because there are two other speakers also. But continuing with your question, which I asked him, Mr. Jaikumar, I would like you to put some light on intellectual property rights while dealing with storytelling and when you're dealing with cross cultures and countries. What is your take on it?
I think you need to register your intellectual property in a primary country. I mean, if it is India, then you need to register. And obviously, because there is a lot of piracy and, I mean, in today's world of AI and all that, you don't know where, who is going to steal your idea. So from that particular point of view, I think in countries like US and all, where the system is very matured, and there are very specific copyright laws and, very, very clear this thing. In India and all, it is evolving. It is good, but I think, at least in your key markets, you need to register your intellectual property, and which you have, in API attorneys in many countries, and you can do that. But in India, it is very simple. I think even if it is actually, coming out as a comic book or in whichever form it comes out, if you can prove, then even if there is a dispute, you will be able to get your copyright. But it is better to register it in a proper, copyright office or trademark office.
Thank you. While dealing with cross cultures, we come across culture sensitivity, which is a very important, crucial subject, which sometimes we overlook it, I would like to ask this question to Sharad, but before that, I would like to share one very small incident of mine where I realized that cultural sensitivity is extremely important. Many years ago, maybe 17, 18 years ago, my film had got nominated in Germany. And that traveled across the world, had got multiple international awards and all that. And in Germany, when my film screening was there, I had gone to present it. It was based on, my story was on folktale. And it did so well. There was, 3 times it was screened and all that. But in one of the screenings, one small German boy stood up and he said, "Oh, that's a Nazi symbol and it's forbidden here." So I wondered, because it's an Indian folk tale and I had nothing to do with Nazi. And then I realized that it is swastika. So I explained to him that swastika is a very religious symbol and it is nothing to do with Nazi culture. And it's a very auspicious to have it in every home. So it's a very natural thing for us. And it was in some backgrounds, on houses, and because it's like a good omen, Of course, that boy understood, and he took it very positively. But that's when I realized that cultural sensitivity is extremely important. It deals with colors when you put in your work. It deals with motives. There are norms. For instance, white in a country, in some countries, it's called purity, whereas in some it is mourning. Red is in some countries it is auspicious. In some it's considered as a danger. And in some countries it's very political. It has a political color. So dealing with all these and coming to you, Sharad, you have created superheroes. There is Chakra, there is Astra Force, and you have been into graphic novels and features and, and now you're going to work with China in a story called Monkey Master. Am I right? Sure. Yeah. Now, dealing with cross cultures, with 2 countries in co-production, with taking care of everything, the cultural background, the sensitivity and all that. So do you, in such cases, have cultural experts working with you? Because it's a very dicey situation. You don't want to hurt anybody's feeling. You want to be popular not only in China, in India, but across the world. So how do you deal with it?
Thank you. So you've asked me a question, 5 minutes left on the timer, and I could probably spend 40 minutes on this question. But first, I want to thank my esteemed colleagues. I've admired everyone's work on this stage, and it is an honor to be here with you. It's an honor to be here with all of you, so thank you so much. I've had the unique honor of creating stories that I feel have spoken to who I am. So, the truth, I, just like Rajiv, am passionate about superheroes. I have been my whole life. For me, great superheroes transcend race, religion, culture. They speak to us in the primal story of human imagination. And that has been my passion. I had the great fortune of, having Stan Lee as a mentor for 20 years, being in this journey of trying to create stories that could connect us and really speak to us again through that wonderful dimension of imagination. I feel that is the true transcendent dimension, right? So obviously, I worked with Marvel on the creation of the Indian Spider-Man, Pavitra Prabhakar, who, finally made his debut in the Spider-Verse film, but that was a 20-year journey. We had started that comic almost 20, probably years ago, we had created that comic, and it took a long time to see that character come to the mainstream the way that it did. I went on beyond that to do a number of shows in India now, and probably the most significant of which has been the recent show we did, The Legend of Hanuman, which I've written every episode of. That has been a labor of love. Worked with some amazing partners and co-creators on that. But the goal of Legend of Hanuman was really to try and tell the story of Lord Hanuman in a way that I always imagined it, and that a way that it took me into a place of wonder. It allowed me to see that long before Spider-Man knew about with great power must come great responsibility, Hanuman was teaching that lesson to 1 billion people, right? So this was the lesson of a part of Hanuman's journey that I also wanted to share, which was the journey of when he thought he was an ordinary Vanar and his powers were taken from him, all the way up to the moment where he realized his godhood. And most stories about Hanuman were telling the story of from the leap on, telling the story when he was there, or telling the story of baby Hanuman. And what we really wanted to do was tell that story of doubt, that story of going through a journey where you think all of a sudden you learn that you have this power. And how do you gain the responsibility to wield it? And that was a very human story. It was a story that I felt connected with the millions who've watched that series. And, I'm proud to say that what we really tried to shape with that show was similar to my hero who you mentioned with Spirited Away. Miyazaki and Stan Lee were my two great heroes of creativity, but the greatest Miyazaki film to me was Princess Mononoke, because for me, Princess Mononoke was a film that, again, took all of the Asian storytelling sensibilities, but allowed us to create a epic as grand as a Lord of the Rings or as anything else. And so, we wanted to do that with Legend of Hanuman. We wanted to create a story that was not for kids, which would change the perception in India that animation is a genre for kids and show that it is a medium for transcendent storytelling regardless of your age. And that show, I'm proud to say, we are on the 3rd week where season 6 has launched, and it has remained the #1 show in all OTT platforms, according to the Ormax report, which has beaten every live-action series and film in the country across all streaming platforms. And what we need are dozens more moments like that to kick the door open right now. I was fortunate to work with my mentor, Rajamouli, on the animated series Bahubali, The Crown of Blood. Again, an older sort of anime approach to taking that property in. And again, I wrote all the episodes of that series and was fortunate to have such an acclaimed story master coming and saying, animation is important. Let us try this. So in all cases now, it is our time. We've seen the rest of the world tap into their own unique identity and bring that identity to the world. What we need to do now is really galvanize that. When I started this 30 years ago, I went across the country recruiting artists, writers, painters, all to our studio in Bangalore with one defining mission: transform the perception of India from being an outsourcer to becoming the source. And now it has been a long journey. We are on that journey. And in cultural sensitivity, I believe that you have to be true, as we are with Hanuman, to the spirit of what those characters are. Of course, we have mythology advisors and consultants who I work with very deeply, but at the end of the day, can we deliver the heart? Can we deliver the heart of what these characters, what these beyond myths, what these stories that have shaped our lives really mean to 1 billion people? And then can we show that to the world? So that is the mission that we're on.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharad. We are really looking forward for this Monkey Master because it sounds really interesting. On the same question, Rajiv, I would like to take your inputs because as far as Chhota Bheem is concerned, I have come across your episodes where you have traveled, made Chhota Bheem travel to Arabia and Petra and Bali and in Shaolin. What about the cultural sensitivity issue? Do you have culture experts dealing with it as far as the look is concerned, or the certain norms which you have to follow, or certain do or don'ts?
Yeah, so when, of course, when we were doing those shows you mentioned where Chhota Bheem goes to China or Indonesia, Bali and Arabia, Petra, I think for us, one of the, at that point, about a decade ago, I think we realized that Indian children are loving to wanting to see what's outside of India. Not many were traveling like they are traveling now. And they were very curious about other cultures. And I thought it would be a great way if we take Bhim and team to, let's say, go to Shaolin, learn Kung Fu, or take them on an adventure across Arabia or to the Petra or Bali. So I think it was very interesting for us. And then culturally wise, we luckily internet and AI wasn't there yet, but internet was something we researched. We even made trips to Bali to actually study the local culture there. We also did something with Mighty Raju in Rio. So we went to Rio all the way to Brazil. We studied and the culture, the dance forms there and stuff. So we recorded, in example, in Rio, the sound. So we get that feeling of authentic music as well. Music also plays, equally important role in animation as does the look and style. If you get your music right, mostly you will get your emotions right as well for the series. So going to Bali, we did the same recording and stuff. But the biggest challenge we had actually was when we had to redevelop Chhota Bheem into Mighty Little Bheem. And something that was a very tall statement for anyone going out of India, because it was the first Netflix original show for kids from India. And we were able to we had a challenge to take Chhota Bheem 1 from a kids program to a preschool program, and then we had to deal with international audiences. So what we did was we hired international writers and domestic writers as well, and we had to make this local character go global. So we had to make sure, thankfully, I mean, like what Jay Kumar said a little while, the emotions are pretty much same everywhere, and so we were able to play the emotion of Mighty Bheem, which is a baby Bheem basically, toddler, and the mother. That emotions we were able to play very well, and we decided, like, babies don't talk, so let's keep it sound off. So there was no dialogues or anything. It was very challenging, but somehow we pulled it off, and it went on to become #1 preschool show on Netflix for those years, 2019 and 20. And more importantly, the cultural wise, UNESCO recognized that was 75th year of independence for India, about 22, I think. They realized that, Mighty Little Bheem would an example of how we can take, using animation, talk about celebrating Indian culture globally. So we were very fortunate, and thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to Pramita. Hi, Pramita. You have worked in India and some other countries and in DreamWorks. You are working in DreamWorks right now as a character effects artist and animation developer. You have to answer this question in a two-way, okay? As an individual and since you are working in an international big studio. So from the lens of DreamWorks, how do you see universal appeal stories?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Well, firstly, DreamWorks or Universal over there, they're very open. They're very accepting to diversity. They're very open to different cross-cultural platforms, taking stories from different places, different countries, within the institute and outside. We are very open and we are very welcoming to different platforms. Probably that's the reason why I'm also working there happily, right? Now, coming to my personal experience, if I have to speak, I have worked in India, I've worked in London, I've worked in LA. And I I'm a person who loves to learn new culture, meet new people, but I didn't understand the concept of accepting and understanding others' culture in the way I have to use it in my work. That is something I learned in the process. So when I was in London, and there was a point that I had to manage work from people who are in Greece or Italy or British, and I had no idea what's their cultural upbringing, coming to connecting to emotions. I was making them or asking work from them in my way, like my upbringing right here in Mumbai, and that didn't work at all. They hated me. I was like, oh, okay, this is not working. So that's when I took a step and I tried to go deeper in understanding how do they see these emotions, because end of the day, we are all artists and we're all, telling stories. That's what we're passionate about. We do have to understand people's culture, accept them, understand the emotions, and then pull out the best from them. That's what, for me, cross-cultural platform should be like.
Also, I would like to add one more question to what we discussed, is that is the cultural backdrop for a story important?
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
Even for educational reasons, for example, Coco, or
Yes.
say Encanto, or, all these kind of movies, like, I don't have access to those people or to those countries or to those cultural just like that, because these kind of, like, I had no idea what Coco, that festival, was until I saw that, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, this is beautiful. And then you start relating to your own, right, and try and understand those. So animation is a huge and very impressive platform where we can do wonders in kind of bringing the world together as one and tell each other's stories to everyone very accepting wise.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge creative.
No, and I'm
beautiful
sure
solution.
all of us will agree to this particular point, even with what Sharad said and what Briana said, Mr. Jaikumar and, Tilak and Rajiv, that introducing ourselves to different cultures through animation, like what Coco is Mexican and Enchanto is Colombian culture, and even there was a film called Breadwinner, and that had a backdrop of Afghan culture. So that is something which we really need. We like seeing such films, not only kids, but even as adults we like. Now, Tilak, I would come back to you and would say that you have an experience in the Indian content. You've recently made Bharat Hai Hum. What do you think about the global, to connect different countries through such kind of films?
See,
Because this is a very typical Indian topic, and how do you look at it?
like what Jaikumar said, the emotions are same. Those 9 navrasas which we talk about, okay, that will transcend to any boundaries. It really, if you really look at basics of a storytelling, it's a 3-act play. And if you are able to say a story in 3-act play, I think we are home. It's simple, basic, do not make it too complex. Say the story the way you want to say it. Don't layer too many stuff into it, especially when you're doing animation. So once you get your storyline in place, it really doesn't matter which story you are saying, because it will, if it hits, the emotion is hit to the audience, it will transcend. It will transcend. People will look at the subtitles if they don't understand the language. Like today, if you see so many South Indian films, Malayalam films, you see it because of the subtitles. And so I think if you get the storyline right, I don't think it's a big challenge.
Okay. Pramita, I'd like to come back to you again, because we have been very fascinated with Kung Fu Panda 4 and where you have worked. And as a character effects and an animation developer, what will really interest personally me and the audience is that, coming back to the cultural sensitivity issue, are you briefed about certain gestures, do and don'ts, or expressions when you're dealing with, now this was Chinese culture, if it is any other culture for that matter, you may be given certain briefs, because there are, like for Indians, when we go abroad, we are very expressive, we use our hands and heads and say yes and no, and some people are not used to Indians, they get very fascinated. Yeah? So there are certain do's and don'ts when you're working on a film.
Absolutely.
What is it?
So it's basically, it's not just about Kung Fu Panda, it's about any movie. When it is made, there is a huge lot of research that's already done in pre-production section. So the director, the producer, the production designer, and the whole team has done a lot of research in understanding how the action should be, which kind of then, waterfalls to the downstream department who actually makes it happen in the production. So when it all the way comes to us, when we are actually making the action, moving the characters and doing stuff, we already know what is expected out of that.
Okay.
So it is very well kept in mind what's the culture like, what's the intention, how to tell the story, what's the audience grip would be, what they would love to see and appreciate, and also to pinpoint, oh, that is a Chinese culture that we are trying to say. Those are already set and done, very well defined by the directors. We just have to understand that, feel that, and replicate that in the action. That's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. The last question goes to Briana.
Oh my goodness.
Because we need a Q&A session also. Of course, I mean, as an animator myself, and it's such an enriching experience for all of us. I would wish that this session keeps going on and on for another 2 hours.
Yes.
But we have restriction of time. Since you have been a teacher and you've traveled the world teaching students across the world, what advice you would give? Because in India, Guru, Guru is a teacher.
Oh, okay. Yes.
We
Guru.
place a Guru near God. Guru is like God for us. So just now you are a professor of animation. So you should have your final take and advice that what do you feel that is you can say, a short way of success for a story? If you want to explain your students.
Oh my goodness. So I would say, tell a story, but tell it slanted. Tell the truth, but tell it slanted. That's the thing that I would say, to quote, I think it's Emily Dickinson, that when we tell something, we always want to get to the core of truth with it. And with students, wherever they're at, they have to be, I would say, curious enough to explore and not just do the thing that they feel is safe, but to get out of the safe zone and try things and explore and make mistakes. And this is the artist's journey for all of us, is that we need to do these things. We have our safe areas where we'll do something the same way over and over and over again, and that leads to things looking all the same. Character design's always looking the same, whatever it might be. We have to keep our minds open, look around the world, not just in our silos, but look everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really enriching. Now I will have to open it to the house for any questions you would like to ask. Oh my God, there are many. And you can just pick and choose your favorite panelists and ask them questions. The gentleman here.
I won't mention any one of you, but this is, as an Indian, you guys have done great work in your career, right? Yet last year, which was like March, Pakistan came up with their animation film in the Academy Awards, and it was great, actually. Lithuania, a small country, which is size probably smaller than Mumbai, they won with an animation film. When will we get our animation Oscar? Any one of you can pick that up.
I think, I think congrats to Pakistan. I'm glad they won somewhere, but...
No, they didn't win. They didn't win.
Okay.
They didn't win.
I mean, what I meant is, yeah, they did that. But as a lover of India and Indian culture and all, we're going to get there and we're going to get a lot of awards. But I think for me, the benchmark is the love you get from children across the world. It is not a bunch of, jury members who decide this works, this doesn't work. I disagree on those kind of model. I think the success of any product is always the thing.
Flo, can I speak on So Flow as a film, I went and saw it in Canada at the Ottawa Animation Festival with my students that I took to it. And it was a film that was made for very little money, and it had a production companies all over Europe that helped to put in a few dollars and a few dollars so that they could make that film. It was one director who had won as a student an award at Ottawa at the Animation Festival. When he got up to receive his award for Flow, he mentioned that winning that as a student inspired him to tell his stories, to be a storyteller. And that is what we need, is we need to be inspired as storytellers to get across our personal stories in a universal way. And if we get to the core of who we are, when we tell those stories, they connect with all of us.
Please be a little brief because we need to wind up also.
Perfect.
Yeah?
My question's for Sharad and Rajiv. So this is about the kind of stories that we are telling. I know especially with Indian stories, we have a deep well of mythological stories. But what is the space for original non-IP stories that might be culture-leaning from India in the current space of Indian animation and global animation? If you can talk a little about that.
Yeah, I think there should be a huge space that it should not just be mythology. Many of our shows, like Checker the Invincible, is a modern-day superhero show. A lot of our other shows that we're developing now have, roots maybe in an ethos that are a unique perspective, in the same way that I'd say anime is a unique perspective of Japan. I think our goal is to tap into the unique identity of Indians and allow that creative impulse to do something that is new to the global stage. But it should be something that speaks to audiences from Boston to Beijing to Bangalore. It should be transcendent. And it does not need to be rooted in mythology. For us, I think that in the same way the West is defined by superheroes or Japan is defined by anime, I do think myth is at the heart of Indians in a different way. But how myth influences our thinking, how myth influences our storytelling is the real uniqueness that we can bring to it.
Yeah, I agree with Sharath. I agree with Sharath. And of course, there are many success story non-myth animated shows like Little Singham as well as Motu Patlu and other stories. They're not myth-based. We have recently seen success of Jai Jagannath also by Toons. So we have great success already. And of course, Krish Tish and Balti Boy has done pretty well. So I think we have enough proof that, good stories work.
Thank you so much, my panelists. Thank you, Tilak, Pramita, Rajiv, Mr. Jaykumar, Sharad, Briana, for this wonderful, enriching session and the wonderful house. And thank you so much, and thank you, Waves, for giving animators and animation production houses an opportunity to give their ideas. Thank you so much.